When I went over for the job interview, I counted 14 empty buildings downtown. 14 in a town of 8,000. And I knew
Right.
if I got the job, I was going to be responsible to help fill those empty buildings. And I got the job. And yes, of course, they said, Deb, what are you going to do to fill these empty buildings? And my first response is, well, what are we going to do? I have some ideas.
This is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community.
Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and here on the podcast, I introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. Today's guest is a leading voice in rural revitalization and a fierce advocate for the potential of small towns. Deb Brown is the co-founder of SaveYour.town, where for the past decade, she's partnered with Becky McCrae to deliver practical, inspiring solutions that help rural communities take bold action and create lasting change. Deb's expertise is grounded in real-world experience, from her impactful work as a Chamber of Commerce executive director to her varied background in retail, insurance, and entrepreneurship. She brings an energetic, no-nonsense approach that resonates with community leaders and grassroots doers alike. She's also the author of From Possibilities to Reality, your small town hands-on guide that brings essential reading for those working to breathe new life into rural places. Whether she's leading workshops, crafting strategies, or sparking conversations, Deb Brown brings insight, connection, and deep belief in what's possible when a small town takes ownership of their future. Deb, I'm excited to have you with us today here on Chamber Chat Podcast. I'd love to give you an opportunity to say hello to all the Chamber champions who are out there listening and to share something interesting about yourself so we can all get to know you a little better.
So, first of all, thank you for the lovely introduction and for having me on your podcast. I am a fierce advocate for belonging to the chamber and being active in your chamber. So, I'm glad to be here having conversations with you. Now, what do you want to know about me that might be different? Hmm. I know how to set off fireworks. In fact, I'm a licensed pyrotechnician, and I
Wow.
learned to do that while I was a chamber director in Webster City, Iowa. So it goes to show many things can happen when you work with the chamber.
That's right. It just shows how chamber executive wears many hats and
Indeed.
carries credentials that you never dreamed you'd have to carry, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about your organization, Save Your Town, just kind of how it started, what the vision is, what you guys do, and kind of anything you want to share about
So Becky McCrae is the rural small business advocate, and she started Small Biz Survival back in 2006. And it is one of the first early blogs that talks about small businesses in rural communities and actions you can take. And I had been following her on Twitter, of all places, right? When I first started on Twitter, and I didn't know any better. So I just reached out and started talking to her.
it. There you go.
I guess I still do that, right? Anyway, we met in person at a bloggers tour in Hutchinson, Kansas, and hit it off and started doing some things together. I was living in Iowa at the time, and she lives in Oklahoma. We were involved in the 140 character conferences, which again is a Twitter-based
Twitter.
conference. We just really got along and thought along the same lines. And she came to visit me one day, and we're sitting over dinner, and she said, I think we should do something together. I'm like, okay. So our first venture was a toolkit on how to do a pop-up in a small town. And my first question to her was, are people really going to pay for this? And
Yeah.
indeed they did, because at that time, not very many people were doing that. And we have grown over the years. I was still working at the chamber at that time and went out on my own with Becky in 2017. We've grown and spent huh, many, many hours in rural communities across the United States and Canada. And it's work that we love to do, and we like being on the ground and hearing what people's challenges are and working with them to figure out ways to overcome those challenges. That's a short synopsis for you.
Yeah. No, that's great. Gives a good background. So I'd mentioned in your bio that you were a chamber executive. You mentioned it with the fireworks. Maybe just to continue helping to set the stage, tell us a little bit about your experience as a
Oh,
chamber executive.
sure. So, my father had had a heart attack, and we moved from North Carolina back to Iowa. And I was looking for something to do, so I volunteered at the local chamber in Hampton, Iowa. And lucky me, the director was phenomenal. And I ended up actually doing the communications, Main Street work, and social media work. This was 2009, right? A while ago,
Right.
and learned a lot. And Iowa has phenomenal Main Street and chamber organization. So I really did learn a lot. And the position for executive director came up in 2013 in Webster City. And I thought, sure, let's apply for it. And danged if they didn't hire me. So
Eh,
I was able to be a director there for a little over 4 years. It was for me, I had some background, of course, in chamber, but more in communications and tourism and talking to people and conversations. So I was given the opportunity at that chamber really to set the stage for the things that we could do in that community that would really make a difference. They had lost a major manufacturer 2 years before I got there, employed 2,000 people in a town of 8,000 to kind of give you an idea. It was a company town and had been there
wow.
for a long time. So many of your listeners will know exactly what that feels like.
Yeah.
And there were some challenges, but as a community and as a chamber, we figured it out and really had a good time reinvigorating the community and getting more people involved, and got past that poor me stage into look at who we are. We're phenomenal. What else
Yeah.
can we do? So that's my chamber experience. I just tried new ideas all the time.
Very good. It definitely helps to give some background so those listening know you understand chambers. You've been in
Oh,
it. You've
yeah.
been in the throes and some of those deepest, toughest struggles that we see.
And I wanna throw in here too that I do have my IOM certification, and that is probably one of the best, educational trainings that I have received in my lifetime. I was fortunate to have a great class, but also the instructors, it's unbelievable training. And if anybody has the opportunity to do an IOM, please do it. And no, I'm not being paid to say that. It's
Yeah.
just been huge in my life going forward from that point.
Yeah. Very good. Well, for today's topic, we're going to spend most of our time talking about a what I see as a very unique revitalization tool, we'll call it, to help revitalize some parts of maybe your downtown or town square that maybe is looking a little empty, a little quiet, little eh, it needs some help. We'll say we see this in small towns all across the country, and Deb's got some great ideas on how to address that, and we'll dive into that as soon as we get back from this quick break.
Hi, I'm Joe,
And I'm Rose.
and we're the founders of App My Community, a mobile app that can be customized to meet the unique needs of your Chamber of Commerce.
When we started At My Community, we envisioned a tool that would help communities thrive by simplifying communication and enhancing engagement. Chambers of Commerce face unique challenges, and we're here to help you tackle them.
App My Community helps the Evergreen Area Chamber of Commerce to create an app that keeps tourists informed even when their office is closed. They provide 24/7 access to local business information, which helps support the local economy and community engagement.
In Rocky Mountain House, we helped Rocky Chamber create an app with dynamic itineraries and digital resources for tourists, increasing local business engagement. The app has become an essential tool for the community, promoting events and boosting visibility for local merchants.
Today, we empower more than 200 chambers of commerce, campgrounds, and RV resorts to streamline communication, informing members about events, sharing business updates, and providing a digital hub for the community, all in one convenient app.
When you partner with At My Community, our team works closely with you to create an app that meets your chamber's unique needs. As your community grows, our app evolves with you. We are here to ensure you engage effectively with your members and streamline your operations.
Schedule a demo today at atmycommunity.com.
We can't wait to meet you.
Are you ready to take your organization's funding to the next level? Hi, I'm Clint Neesmith, CEO of Resource Development Group. As a Chamber of Commerce or Economic Development Organization leader, I know you understand the value of working with experts who understand your world. And that's exactly what RDG does best. For over 30 years, RDG has specialized in fundraising for EDOs and chambers. We bring cutting-edge strategies tailored to your organization, whether you're just starting out or gearing up for yet another new funding cycle. Importantly, our firm executives are hands-on from start to finish, from the feasibility study to the successful conclusion of your fundraising campaign, and our team brings deep industry roots and national expertise to every engagement. No matter the size of your community, RDG delivers data-driven, innovative revenue solutions, reinforcing ROI to investors and making sure your vision becomes reality. At RDG, we proudly build organizations that build communities. Visit us today at rdgfundraising.com and let us partner with you, building a stronger future for your organization and the community you are working to grow and develop.
Hey Chamber execs, are you juggling ribbon cuttings, grant deadlines, membership renewals, and a rogue newsletter that just won't format? That's where Econ DevOps comes in. We're a virtual assistant agency built exclusively for chambers and EDOs. From social media to CRM cleanup, event planning to inbox management, we handle the behind-the-scenes work so you can focus on impact. And here's the best part. We don't just assign a random virtual assistant. We match you with someone who fits your workflow, your communication style, even your level of type A. Visit econdevops.com or email us at hello@econdevops.com and finally cross hire help off your to-do list. Econ DevOps, helping community champions make a bigger impact.
All right, Deb, we're back. So as I teased before our pause there, today we're talking about this unique approach to revitalizing downtowns, town squares, some of these areas where we see parts of towns that maybe get forgotten. Maybe they had a great historical impact in this community. In any community USA, right? We see it all across the country. But I'm going to let you introduce what this approach is and how you go about doing it.
Absolutely. So, we're going to talk about the tour of empty buildings. And I want to tell you a story about how we came up with this entire idea and this concept. So, I mentioned before working in Webster City, when I went over for the job interview, I counted 14 empty buildings downtown. 14 in a town of 8,000. And I knew if I got the job, I was going to be responsible or one of them to help fill those empty buildings. And I got the job. And yes, of course, they said, "So, Deb, what are you going to do to fill these empty buildings?" And my first response is, "Well, what are we going to do? I have some ideas, right?" And my thought was some were beautiful historical buildings. Most of them had a great story. I know that people are curious and they want to see what's in places. Like if I can go upstairs and see where they stored their things in the old bank vault, I want to do that, right? So I came up with the idea, let's showcase these buildings because instead of hiding them or ignoring them, we want to fill them. So let's showcase them. And it's vacant or underutilized buildings you can do that for. And the tour is designed, it raises awareness about these building vacancies and inspires the reuse and revitalization ideas. In a month's time, we scheduled a tour of empty buildings. Now, would I recommend doing that in a month's time? I might tell you to take 2 months, just saying, but I didn't know any better. And I had a group of people that were ready for change. They were tired of the story that we failed because it didn't fail. Things just changed. And that's
Sure.
life happens. So We had some really great members and people were ready to try something new. They were tired of that "we failed" story because that was just a story. In real life, things happen and change is the only constant, right? So a group of us members got together and said, what can we do? So we made a list of the empty buildings, got in touch with the realtors to ask them, do you know the owners? Which ones are for sale? We were fortunate to have a local historian in the community, and Nancy put together stories about each individual building, which was great because it's good to know the history, right? And
Yeah,
our chamber champions, those were the retired individuals that were still members. We called them chamber champions.
I love it.
And they stepped up to say, well, I'll tell that story. I'll go in this building and I'll tell that story. So we put the tour together, and it was, you could come and go as you please. It was over a time period of 3 hours. A local engineering company made the map for us, and we made that available both online and at the chamber office. So you could come and pick it up or print it off. And the biggest secret I can share with you both before and after the tour is we talked to everybody. We had conversations with everybody. Have you heard about the tour of empty buildings? Are you coming? And people had not heard, and it involved being out in the community and being in the places where people talk. One of my favorite stories is I went to the morning coffee where the old guys go and all have coffee, right? You know this
Yeah.
group. Most
Yeah.
small towns have them. And crotchety group of old guys. And one of the fellows said to me, Deb, what are you doing? It's not going to work. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why should I share about it? And I had to think for a minute and I said to him, where's your daughter live? Because, well, she lives at the state capitol. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. You got grandkids, right? He goes, yeah. I'm like, what would it be like if your daughter could move back home with her family and start her own business in one of these empty buildings? And it's like the light bulb went off over his head. Everybody has a motivating factor, and that was his. And now
Yeah, I
he
love it.
saw reasons where he could share that story, and he became one of our biggest advocates. And in fact did share the story amongst his group of peers and organizations. It was just wonderful. And so a month later, we had the tour. 44 people came. And I declared that a success because that was 44 people that not only got to see the empty buildings, but also took their stories and shared them outside of the tour with their friends and families and associates. And we continue to share. The local newspaper got on board. Every time somebody rented a building, they showed up and took pictures of the new renters and made a big deal about the ribbon cutting and shared about those people's stories and the kind of products and services they were providing. The local radio station got involved. It became just so much fun to see what was happening in all these different buildings. And there were 12 buildings on the tour. In 18 months, 10 of those 12 buildings were filled.
Wow.
And they weren't filled with another factory or some new big conglomerate from outside of our community. The majority were filled with entrepreneurs and local businesses that may have been expanding or ready to move from their garage to a brick and mortar building. Why did it work? Because we kept talking about it. And we shared
That's
every
awesome.
story possible. And we used social media because this was 2013. Social media was important, much more important than before all the stuff that goes on with it now, right?
All the algorithms now
Yeah,
and how
yeah,
they
yeah. It was just
manipulate it.
people being in touch with their families and sharing stories. So I love talking about the tour of empty buildings because I know it works. We heard from Natchez, Mississippi, that does the tour of empty buildings just about every year.
Yeah.
Buildings come and go, business owners come and go. Things don't stay permanent. So for them, it made sense to do that little bigger community. We heard from a group in Australia, and I think it was in Sydney, who said, we do tours for tourists to go see different things in our community. We have added one empty building into that tour because you never know when a tourist
That's
might want to
right.
start a job. We were just hearing all different kinds of people wanting to take advantage of this tour. And we got the phone calls from some of our neighbors. Hey, can we do one in our community? And of course, what am I going to say? Absolutely, you can do one in your community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here you and I are 12 years later, still talking about the tour of empty buildings.
That's
Um,
right.
I want to go a little bit further and share another story from that. The local movie theater closed my first week on the job.
Oh,
That's just
man.
wrong. In a small
Right?
town, the local movie theater is really important, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people in town. And so I said, let's bring a bunch of people together and talk about this. So I just said, hey, let's meet in 2 weeks at the middle school and see what we can do. Huge group of people showed up that wanted to save the theater. So that told us right there it was an unofficial, informal gathering to just see who was interested. And there were a lot of people interested. And this group ended up forming a 501c3. They raised money. Now, it was going to cost $90,000 to upgrade from old film to digital and had to buy the building. And the building was for sale for $30,000. That's a lot of money, right? But we didn't care because we knew we could raise the money. People wanted to save the theater. The alumni associations in town jumped on board. We decided to sell the seats at $300 a pop. Not actually sell the seats, but you could have your plaque on the back of it. And the alumni associations bought those like they were giving them away free. Made a huge difference. The students at the high school created movie trailers about the project that could be
That's
shown
really
on
cool.
social media. I mean, everybody jumped in and got involved, and it was the majority of the funding came in 5, 10, and $25 donations. There were a couple of $10,000 donations, but the majority of it was small. And that speaks to the power of a small town that knows what it wants, and someone or some group of people is there to help guide them to achieve that.
Yeah.
That's just one story from those 12
Great story.
buildings.
Yeah. So I've got some questions about the empty
Sure.
building tours. So with this initial tour that you did with the 12 buildings, you had 44 people come to do the tours. What was your initial goal going into it? Like, what if we can accomplish one thing out of this doing these tours, what would that be? And then with that goal, you mentioned talking about it everywhere, but who was it that you were really targeting to be on those tours?
Very good question. So the initial goal was to change the conversation from we suck, we have empty buildings, to look at the possibilities. Look at what we do have. There's place for lots of new businesses here. And that's important because if you're thinking positively, these are the kind of things you can accomplish. But if you keep that negative attitude around you, it's just hard to break through that. So that was the initial goal. Get the building shown and maintain that good conversation and get people excited again. Excuse me. Generally, we've seen chambers, economic development groups, even local community organizations um, do put these tours on. And you want to fill them with people that want to start businesses, actually. So maybe it's entrepreneurs, maybe it's another business that wants to expand its footprint. Perhaps it's we never looked for big businesses. We were looking for the smaller businesses and how we could make that happen. A good example is 3 of the empty buildings went into the incubator project, which was just something I made up. I approached the owner and said, what if we helped entrepreneurs start a business and they could do that in your building? Free rent first 3 months, reduce rent the rest of the year. They pay the utilities. The chamber will help with marketing, and the SBDC will come in and help with the tools that they can provide. And she said, fine, sounds like a great idea. And that really worked. That was phenomenal. And not just there were several different people that tried that idea out, and a couple of them ended up buying buildings in town and expanded their initial footprint. So you just have to think a little differently, a little outside the box, give people a chance, lower those barriers to entry, because that's what an incubator project does. If you think about buying a building, there's $100,000, another 100 grand to rehab it and fix it. and you haven't even tried your idea out? Makes no sense, right? So an incubator project gives you that opportunity to do that.
Yeah,
I
very
hope
cool.
I answered your question. I kind of
Yeah,
went off.
yeah, you did. In fact, as you were giving your response, it reminded me I had heard I was trying to remember where I'd heard it from, and I'm pretty sure it came from the book 13 Ways to Kill Your
Doug,
Community.
yeah.
Yes, and he talks about one of the ways to kill your community, obviously uses reverse psychology, right? You don't want to kill your community, but if you did, one of the things would be don't paint. Like don't keep things fresh, don't keep things looking good. And he talks about the downtown environment and where there's vacant lots, some communities put a little park, in this vacant lot and updated the facade on the buildings. I think it was in here where it even talks about putting posters up in the windows of some of these vacant buildings to show, either how that building was used in the past. So when you're walking down Main Street and you see this empty building, maybe it used to be a barber shop and you've got posters of a barber in there, doing this, or you could put posters, these screen posters on the windows to help people imagine what the space could be. And it's not necessarily getting them in the doors and doing the empty building tour like you're talking about, but it's drawing attention to what can this space become? What has it been in the past? What can it become? And keeping it beautiful, keeping the area looking nice, making sure that there's not broken windows in these buildings because that just, spirals into bigger things.
And I want to piggyback on that because it doesn't have to be the building owner that does all of that. I follow this lawn mowing service on TikTok, and they actually go to people's houses and mow the yards
Yes.
for free.
Yes. I've seen
Man,
that.
that stuff is addicted. But we call those ninjas, where what if me and a couple of my friends went and washed windows on one of those empty buildings? Just wash the windows and swept the sidewalk. That makes a big difference because people notice, oh, what are they doing in there? Look, the windows are clean. Sometimes if it's a local owner, they get a phone call that says, what's going on? I see your windows are clean. It's little ninja things that other people can do. What are they going to do? Are they going to tell you to dirty the windows again? Of course not, right? So how can we as community members become a ninja and help? What things can we do? You have an empty lot in town and you'd like a restaurant? You know what? Go take a card table with a couple of your friends and eat lunch there every day. Because people are going to drive by and go, what the hell is Deb doing over there? And they're going to stop or call me and I'm going to say, we want a restaurant here. So we're trying the idea out. Don't be afraid to take those tiny steps to get people thinking and talking about what you're doing.
Yeah.
It
I
matters.
love that. I love that. Those little things matter. So back with the focus on the empty building tour,
Yes.
I imagine there's some level of coordination when trying to track down the owners of the buildings, if they're a local owner, if they're out of town owner, if they've got a realtor that they're using. Like, how do you gain access to these buildings and
So
coordinate?
that's easier than you think.
Okay.
The majority of small town realtors that I know anyway know their community very well. And they
Yeah.
know the history of the buildings that they're responsible for. For us, that was the perfect outreach to get in touch with we asked all the realtors in town, let's sit down and visit because we want to do something with these buildings you'd like to sell or
Right.
rent or fill, right? So those were willing partners in the progress of it. Like I said, I counted 14, 12 came on the tour, and one of those actually backed out at the very last minute because that kind of stuff happens, right?
Sure.
And ended up he had a building that probably shouldn't have been toured, and that's why he backed out.
Yeah.
It happens, right? It
Yeah.
happens. So you don't one person, the chamber director does not do all this work by themselves. You will lose your mind. This is an
I'm
opportunity
glad
where
you
you
said
can
that.
Oh, yeah, no, you need to gather as a crowd and people that wanna participate in this project with you. It will be usually the realtors and the building owners. Some of the local ones, just pick up the phone and call them. Or they go to lunch at this restaurant every Wednesday, go sit down and visit with them. You know
Yeah.
these people. This is not difficult.
That's right.
Often we make projects hard, so maybe I don't know Connie, but I know that my board president does. And I'm going to say, can you go talk to Connie? And here's what we want to know. So use your connections and don't be afraid to ask other people, what are your ideas? What do you think we should be doing? The newspaper was thrilled to be involved, and they came up with their own idea about follow up and how they can be most effective with these new businesses. So, the more you work with lots of people, the more ideas, and you want to try them all because you don't know which ideas are going to work and which aren't. So
Yeah.
don't, if the idea doesn't work, so what? It just didn't
Yeah.
work. Go to the next one, right?
So would you have everybody meet up at the chamber office and
No.
then walk to these buildings, or would you caravan, or how would you gather
So
to begin this
to
tour?
do the actual tour, you mean?
Right. Yeah.
So we didn't do it that way because we wanted people to come and go. Say, you may only want to look at 3 buildings. You don't want to look at all
Okay.
12 buildings. So you would
Gotcha.
pick up your map or download it, and you knew from 4 to 7, you could go look at the buildings. So counting was interesting because we had somebody in each location that counted the number of people that were serious that came in to look at stuff. By serious, I mean stayed, had a treat, and asked a few questions. That's serious enough, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't recommend doing a ride around tour unless that's something you want to do.
Right.
Maybe you have a group of Centerville, South Dakota, had this idea. They had empty buildings that were not open. So they decided to meet downtown and they did a walk around of their empty buildings. And I think there were 6 or 7. And the economic developer knew, again, somebody that knew most of the people in town. And they just walked around and talked about the history of the building and what could be possible, answered questions. And I think they had maybe 14 people on that tour. It's a tiny
Okay.
town. It was perfect for them. Esteline, I think they're South Dakota. The weather was not the greatest when they did theirs. So they decided to do just a mini tour for their board and a few building owners. They wanted to try the idea out. Let's work with our board and see how this is going to work. And that worked for them because it was a smaller group, a new director that didn't quite know how to be a chamber director yet. He's really learning and he's great. But this was good for him to try it out and see what his board thought. And of course, it was positive because you bring a group of interested people together talking about the possible success of your community. How could it not work out?
Right. Yeah. I
Yeah, it
love
doesn't
that.
have to be huge. It can be work what works in your community.
Yeah. Yep. And you've shared some great examples of how different communities have taken it and adapted it to fit and work for their communities. So I love that. Well, Deb, as we start to wrap things up, I wanted to ask you on behalf of the chamber leaders that are out there listening who are wanting to take their organization up to the next level, what kind of tip or action item might you share with them as they try to accomplish that goal?
So I have a couple of things. The first one that I suggest to just about everybody is to host a coffee and calendars event. And how this works is perhaps you want to work with a select group of people. It might be your nonprofit organizations. Invite them to come over for coffee and bring their calendars. And what you're going to do is talk about the next 3 months on the calendars of what people are doing. You want to share information and see if there's any way that you can collaborate or work together. The way that we did it is I think we had maybe 10 people there and we met. I don't even remember where we met. Doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be at the chamber at City Hall. It can be at the coffee shop for that matter.
Mhm.
And I asked people to go around, tell us who they were, what organization they were with, and tell us one thing that we may not know about their organization. And we found out that Building Families, a nonprofit organization, had funding to give to daycare, possible daycare owners to help. If you have a house and you want to start your own daycare, but you need to get
Okay.
licensed, it would help with the licensing. Maybe buy new toys, maybe put a fence up. Just those small things that are necessary, but an individual may not have. That's huge. You know how hard it is to find childcare these days. So to have an organization have that kind of funding, that was a big deal. And we didn't know it. And I'm the chamber director and might have thought I
Yeah.
should know it, right? So you start with that so you learn about each other, and then you start looking at calendars. So maybe you're having an event February 14th, and so am I at 1 o'clock, both of us. Can we partner? Can I do mine at 10 and you do yours at 1 so we can have people in town the whole day? Begin to have these coffee and calendars kind of conversations on ways to work together to collaborate for the benefit of the community.
That's a great idea.
Anybody can do
Yeah.
that. Chambers can do that, but so can the local church society. I mean, think about who could do that. So that's my first tip. Take the small steps. Not everything has to be a big deal. Find out from your membership, what is it that they want? I used to have one of my staff, part-time staff, was a retired school first grade teacher. That should tell you. Nobody told Joanne no. So she would make the phone calls to members and say, Deb wants to come over for half an hour and have a conversation with you, and book the appointments. And I'd go with my notebook and just simply ask, so what can we do for you? What is it that you want? And they were frankly surprised because nobody had ever asked them that. Generally, we go with our hand open, right?
Yeah.
Find out what your members want and how you can help them and how each other can help each other. We're in the business of making our communities the best they can possibly be by supporting our local businesses and our members. Remember that. Continue to support your local businesses and your members in the way that they ask for help.
Great pieces of advice. I love it.
Thank you.
I like asking everyone I have on the show as we look to the future of chambers of commerce. How do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
We live in this space, particularly those of us over 50, where we have one foot in the old way and one foot in the new way. So the new way of doing things is generally taking the small steps, building connections, gathering our crowd, figuring out how to work together as a group or as an organization. And the old way is letting your board make all the decisions and deciding without input from the community. Figure out how to get from the old way to the new way. Those communities that can do that are going to do really, really well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
And
that's a great
I'm
point.
not young. Just you're
Yeah,
saying, I understand the old way and I know why it worked when it did, but it's time for a new way. Let's
yeah.
support as many people as we can.
And change can be hard. And if we can be helpful in helping to bridge the old way to the new way, let's help
And
make that transition a little bit easier.
change is the only constant.
That's
There's
right.
always going to be change, right? The
That's
other
right.
stuff comes and goes too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Deb, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share any contact information for listeners or anywhere you'd want to point them if they wanted to reach out and connect and learn more about what it is you have to offer or how you can help their communities. Where would you point
So to find out about us, if you go to saveyour.town, and it's SAVEYOUR dot wealth of information, sign up for our free newsletter, read the stories and the articles about what different small towns are doing, and enjoy yourself at the site. Both Becky and I have written books and we're pretty excited about it. Mine is, you mentioned it, From Possibilities to Reality. And you can find that one at savior.town. You'll find the article that talks about the books. If you go to savior.town/books, you'll see both of our books there. Just sign up for the newsletter. It's free, and we share stories from people that we meet on the road, emails that we receive from people like you that have stories to tell us. We are committed and invested in our rural and small towns, and we want everyone else to be as well.
Yeah, very good. I will make sure that's in our show notes for this
Thank you.
episode, make it easy for listeners to find the website and find you and find the book and reach out and connect. Deb, this has been a great conversation. I'm glad we're able to get you on the show and to really explore this empty building tours idea and some of the success stories that have come out of this, not just in your community, but in other communities who have adopted this strategy. I think it's a really great idea. So thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
it with us.
And thank you so much, Brandon, for having me on the show. And feel free, anybody has a chamber question that I might be able to answer, just shoot me an email, deb@savior.town. Be happy to answer.
If you are a chamber professional, be sure to subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast on your favorite podcast app or now on YouTube so you never miss a new episode. New episodes are released each week and delivered right to you. If you're finding value in the podcast, please take a moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. It really helps others discover the show. And most importantly, share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues in the industry so we can continue to grow and strengthen the chamber community together.
This episode is brought to you by Riverside. If you've ever thought about starting a podcast for your chamber or your business, one of the biggest challenges is recording high-quality audio and video, especially when you and your guest aren't in the same room. Riverside is the platform I use to record every episode of the show. It gives you studio-quality audio and video right from your browser, automatically backs up your files, and even creates clips you can use on social media. It's designed to make podcasting simple and professional without the headaches. If you're ready to launch your podcast or upgrade your recordings, head over to chamberchatpodcast.com/riverside to get started today. Again, that's chamberchatpodcast.com/riverside, the same tool I trust to bring you these conversations every week.